scaling is at the core of our work because poverty is an issue that affects millions of people globally. And we think about bold solutions that could be scaled and reach millions. We don't want to go and work on small projects, but we are thinking about like broad solutions to eliminate poverty. Therefore, when we design even a small pilot, or even when we are doing a small testing, we are thinking already about designs that can be easily be scaled up if the case arises. In scaling, there is a variety of impacts that should be considered. Because usually when you conduct pilots are conducted in a very small, in a contained environment, in a controlled environment. And when you are scaling, there are more externalities and issues, and there are a lot of potential unintended effects that you didn't envision at the very beginning when you were working on a pilot. Therefore, you have to think about evaluation, and you have to start thinking about those externalities that you didn't imagine at the very beginning. There is a very good example from the microcredit industry in the 80s, because at that moment it was considered one of the most successful alternatives for lifting people out of poverty. Therefore, like this type of programs immediately scale up in a very rapid pace. It went, those programs expanded throughout the world, and we were witnessing with the time that there were a lot of different effects. In some cases, some institutions were charging very high interest rates to participants. Participants were complaining, and they had a lot of stress. They had a lot less emotional and financial well-being, and even we heard about like suicides rates increasing among participants who were part of the microcredit industry. So of course, this was an unexpected effect, but you have to be careful. You cannot expand and scale things up so quickly. You have to conduct permanent evaluations if you want to think about sound solutions for development. Also, another thing that we have to consider a lot is looking and conducting evaluation through gender lenses, especially because there could be differentiated effects in a program. So you can have a program, and usually like what you do is that you evaluate like the whole program, but you don't consider necessarily what is happening with certain groups like women, minority, and they could have different effects than the rest of the group. So you really have to take into account the different impacts a project may have. Funders can help innovators when they have large funding cycles that go beyond the design and implementation of a small pilot, but they continue the support throughout the scaling efforts. And also, it is very important that funders are flexible. And when I mean that is because scaling requires setting in motion a lot of collaborative work among different partners, not only the institution that is being funded. So very often you have to align government members, you have to align academia, you have to align a very different array of actors, and they have very different implementation and operational cycles. So you need to coordinate all this group of people. So flexibility is key in the work. For scaling, you will need more resources to conduct evaluation, but also like evaluation can be very expensive. Traditional evaluation is very expensive. So if funders, if different actors think about how to identify different evaluation methodologies, that can be very, very helpful, because we need to make evaluation more cost effective. We need to see how we can even use different evaluation methodologies. We have to think about like new technologies, like how machine learning, how artificial intelligence can improve the way evaluation is being conducted, and how we can reduce costs in the long term. Also, something that is very important is how we continue promoting a gender focus on the evaluation agenda. Canadian policy has been very progressive in this, and I really believe that IDRC and overall Canadian institutions have a very have a lot of knowledge, so you can help us advancing the gender agenda, and we have to think about the differentiated effects in the case of scaling, because scaling doesn't affect men and women in the same way.